All right. So a lot of you guys sort of got the intro a little bit when you originally signed up to the webinar, but I just want to sort of recap a little bit here. So who we've got with us today is Mitch Ribak. Mitch is basically a living legend when it comes to internet lead conversion. He's been doing this for a long time, 10 years running ISA programs and converting online leads in his brokerage. And, you know, that leads all the way to in 2015, where he got close, didn't quite get there, but did almost a deal a day from his internet leads. And that's with, you know, out of his 65 agent office, less than half of those are actually on the lead program. So you can see that he's got, pretty tight group of agents that are being very, very productive with the internet leads that they're bringing to the table. So without further ado, I know you guys want to get to the meat of it, so I'll let Mitch take it from here.
Hey guys, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. We're going to throw out a whole bunch of information that's probably going to aggravate everybody because it's too much information, but that's the only way I know how to do it. There's plenty of time for questions, so if you have questions as we're going through this, just ask them. And Dan, I guess you can see the questions. I can't see anything on my side. So we're just going to get right into it. So just to give you an idea, these are my 2015 stats. The reason why I'm using those, oops, sorry, I got a box keeps popping up in front of me with all the people trying to get in. You guys are lucky. There's like literally this thing is just nonstop people trying to get in. So these are our numbers in 2015, and I usually it's just to give people an idea of what we do and how we do it. We had 8,633 new leads, 65 agents with 25 on leads. We had 329 closings from leads, and I forgot to put the percentage of what that was, but that's out of 640 total closings. We track our leads through short-term and long-term conversions, and what I mean by that is most people will take their leads and say, you know, we got 2,000 leads this year and we get X amount of sales, that's our closing rate. Well, the reality, that's not a real close rate because it's not a trackable number. We've been tracking our leads since '09, and so in our typical year, we convert 2.4, 2.5% of new leads into sales, and then long-term conversion right now is at 5.5%. So what that means is leads from 2009 are currently closing at 5.5%. And when I talk about our leads, we have the worst possible leads you can ever get in life, raw registration leads. So there's not like we get these great leads and we're converting them. 50% don't have numbers. 10% of the ones that have numbers are bad numbers. But we also managed to get a decent amount of sales from leads with no phone numbers based on our processes, which we'll go over in a little bit. Anyways, we did $127 million in volume. Average sale in our area is, I don't know, 200,000 to 190,000, something like that. So that gives you a little bit of insight into what we do. The stats I'm going to go over now are just, again, so you can understand how important lead conversion is and how important response time is. So this is our, you don't really have to look at 2014, it doesn't really matter. But in 2015, and one of these days I'll actually get my 2016 numbers done, but I've been so busy with the ISA company I haven't had time. In 2015, 54% of our sales from leads came from leads from 2015. So that means 46% came from leads that were a year or older. And if you look down the bottom, 10% came from leads that were from 2012 or earlier. The reason why we have such a good success rate on leads and continues because of our follow-up systems and our in-house ISAs that we've had forever. And we can talk a little bit about that as we move forward. But this gives you an idea of how many leads convert on that basis. But what I think is more important is the next slide is of those 2015 leads, 48%, so we're talking about 75 of our 300, roughly, of our 329 sales bought within 3 months. Everybody misses the low-hanging fruit. And the reason why everybody misses the low-hanging fruit is because nobody will call their leads, and nobody has systems in place to call their leads. So in our brokerage, we spent we've had the ISA department for 10 years. We've had the brokerage for 14 years. I've been selling real estate for almost 16 years, and I've been doing internet lead conversion for almost 16 years. I started this almost immediately after becoming a realtor, based on my days of being an internet guy. For those of you that don't know, I was the first online dating service back in 1995, and AskMitch.com and Ask Mitch the Date Doctor on a radio show. So if you ever need dating advice, you can always call me. I'm good at that too. But these numbers are really interesting because it tells you that 82% of our leads that bought in 2015 bought in 6 months. So if you're not on top of these things right away and not calling them right away, you're going to lose out pretty quickly on sales that you could have had, because somewhere they're going to get someday we're going to get, it's going to get more and more competitive. It's very, very challenging right now. I did see a question that came by saying, why didn't I have 2016 stats? I just haven't had time to do them. We started the ISA company last June, and literally in January, where I normally would have done the stats, we brought on 23 new brokerages for the ISA company. So, and I'm traveling like crazy. So hopefully over the next couple weeks, months, I'll get my 2016 stats. So I always like to go over and talk about why brokerages and teams and agents fail at lead conversion. Some is expectations. We know that agents, if you have a high expectation on leads and you get a low response, then you just really, the wind's knocked out of your sail and you don't end up doing anything with it. Just to let you know, if you do 5% of raw leads, you're a rock star in this. The average conversion rate is less than 1%. We've got a couple of brokerages that we've just taken over that joined our full service program. They were starting in late March, early April, and their conversion rates are 0.31 and 0.61. In my sleep, we're gonna quadruple their business in my sleep because that's such a low number. But if their agents expect to be doing, if I got 100 leads, I should have at least 50 sales. Well, the reality is their expectations are going to be so off, it doesn't matter. The other thing is overwhelming agents with leads. Go ahead.
One quick question. Can you just clarify
Sure.
what your lead source is that you're getting that kind of conversion rate? Because it'll be different based on where those leads are coming from. So where are most of your leads coming from?
Yeah, they're all pay-per-click leads. So that's not Zillow, that's not Julia, Realtor. Those are all pay-per-click leads.
So pay-per-click and then
100%.
forced registration at your IDX search site, right?
Exactly. We have forced registration always, yeah.
Yeah.
Always have, always will. Too many leads, that's another issue that I used to have. I used to give my agents 100 leads a month each. When I dropped them down to between 45 and 60, my lead conversion doubled, partly because they weren't overwhelmed. Now we keep no more than 200 to 300 leads in their database. We move all the other leads out so they don't get overwhelmed when they look at 2,000 leads, which is what they used to have. Another major thing is accountability. We have accountability managers, and their only job is to follow behind our agents and make sure they do what their job is. If they don't, their lead gets transferred automatically. We don't put any emotion into our lead system. It's very much if you don't do it, the lead gets transferred. Sorry, and maybe you won't do that next time. Again, over analyzing, and like I said, if you don't inspect what you're giving them, they're not going to respect what you're giving them. That was a huge issue for me, and that's why we started more micromanaging things. It's a pain in the butt, by the way, but the difference is millions of dollars in your pocket. So I don't mind being a pain in the butt for millions of dollars. Overanalyzing is the same thing as expectations. I mean, you don't have to get to the point where you're like spending all your time analyzing and analyzing. It's really simple. Either if they're making enough calls, they get enough showings. If they get enough showings, they get enough contracts. So if they don't have enough showings, they're not making their phone calls. If they don't get enough contracts, they're doing something wrong in the field. So it's not that difficult to figure all that out. Lack of first phone calls. 42% of all internet leads never get called. If they do get called, they get called maybe 24 plus hours later, and with a contact rate of less than 30%. So that really means that about 75 to 80% of your leads, if you're a broker or a team leader, are never being called. We do know, again, we know this because we've been doing it for so long in our brokerage, by the way. We know that most of our agents, if not all of our agents, will only call once if they're going to call, and they'll never call again. So if they're not getting a hold of the person in the first call, you're not building any type of rapport, you're not setting the stage for how things go. Anyways, our lack of doing anything with leads with no phone numbers. 25% of our sales every year. Last year we had 83 sales from leads with no phone number. So you need to make sure that you're following a process with every lead. One of the number one things I hear from brokers and agents is, well, I don't want to spend the time setting up a search, a saved search, unless I've talked to them so I know what they want. Well, the reality is you're never going to talk to them because you don't call them. So you need to set up a search right away. A lead comes in, the first thing you should be doing is setting up a search. Again, lack of initial training, lack of consistent follow-up and ongoing training. We train our agents on a regular basis. We train our ISAs always on a regular basis, so they know exactly what they're doing, and our agents are held accountable to what they're supposed to be doing. Any questions so far?
Yeah, we've got a couple questions coming in. Let's look. So Kevin's asking, how do you determine who gets a lead? Like, so which agent do you assign what leads to? Is there any criteria there, or?
Sure. So what we used to do and what we do now are two different things because I became more hands-off with it. When I was really into it, we would, like, all of our new agents would only get leads under $150,000 until they get at least 2 transactions out of the lead system. $150,000 is, our average price is $200, so it's not that far off. It was also a place for us to give our low-end leads because nobody else wanted to work them. Now we just pretty much do a round robin. We don't hire new agents anymore. In fact, we have a hiring freeze for 2017. All the agents that are on leads have been on leads for a year or more, so they all know what they're doing. So it's not a big deal right now. Round robin is the easiest way to do it. Now what our ISAs will do, and by the way, I know someone asked what our ISA is. That's an inside sales agent. So you know what that means. What they'll do now is, because agents have no idea what's in their database, we'll go ahead and transfer leads based on what we see during the phone calls. For instance, if I'm talking to a lead, well, not me personally, but if we're talking to a lead that is that is a high end, $500,000, $600,000, $1 million here, and the agent it's assigned to does mostly $100,000 sales, we're going to go ahead and transfer that lead over to someone else. In the 13 years I've been doing this as a brokerage, in the 150, 200,000 leads we've gone through, I've had one agent call me out once, which is really pathetic, by the way. That only one person knew that the leads got transferred. And it was probably one of my worst agents I ever had, and she was fired about a week later. Any other questions on there before I go to the next slide that you want me to answer?
No, I think there's a few technical ones. I'll keep rolling through them. There's a whole bunch coming in, so I'll just keep popping in for questions, and we'll get through them.
Okay. No minimal phone call follow-up at the initial contact. So good. So some people do get a hold of people on the first call, 30%, right? However, they never call them again. They don't do any type of follow-up after that. You have to have a process in place for every single lead to make sure that they're getting what you need, what they need, and what you need to do to keep them as a customer. Part of this is a mindset amongst agents. So your typical agent is good for anything that's within 2 weeks. So if they're going to do something in 2 weeks, then they'll go ahead and they'll work that lead. However, if it's more than 2 weeks, pretty much the ADD nature of our business, myself included, by the way, they're on to the next best thing. What's going to generate me revenue today? So what we've trained our agents on forever is having the proper mindset. The mindset we use is we have instead of call me in 6 months when you're ready, we have a 6-month opportunity to build a relationship. And if you do that with your lead, they're almost always going to be loyal to you as a customer, not as an agent. Not always, but you're going to have a lot better chance of building loyalty if you are the one contacting them on a regular basis. Another thing for the brokers and team leaders out there, don't rely on your agents to do drip campaigns especially. You should already have drip campaigns so you know that the writing's correct. We, somewhere in my office, I don't know where it is now because it's been a while since we've used it, we have a templated email responses that they can edit so they're emailing correctly. It's amazing how badly most people write. So especially with drip campaigns, make sure that you have control of that stuff. Lack of training, sales training, training on lead conversion, training on phone calls, training in the field. We do a training session once a month in my brokerage. It could be any of those things. We're getting ready to send all of our agents who are on leads to Tom Ferry training. It's expensive, but the $10,000 I'm going to spend is going to make it back in a couple of transactions, so it's well worth it to me. For agents out there, for people that show property out there, I'm assuming there's some out there, you have to have some sort of sales strategy when you're in the field. You can get anybody to your car through however you do your processes with lead conversion, but if you're terrible in the field and you don't have any strategy set up, that doesn't work. So I'm going to run through you real quickly my showing the best house second to last, my 2-day strategy. So if you're a broker out there and you want to teach this to your agents, it works really, really good. Basically, my first day of showing property is my education day. I never show more than 8 houses in a day. And by the way, I don't really sell houses anymore, even though I was number 2 in my company last year for selling houses. I don't know how that happened when I don't really sell houses. But I still employ all these strategies that I'm going to talk about right now. So we set up no more than 8 houses, and the first day is about learning. My second day, I go through that night before, and I pick the house I know they'll buy based on the conversation we had the day before. And I always put that house second to last. So I'll show 6 more homes that are better than the homes from before. I'll show the 7th home, which is the second to last home, and they immediately, you can see it in their eyes, and if you sold houses, you know that look. And once they do that, we go ahead and show the 8th house, and the 8th house is just like the other houses. And the only salesy thing I say is, we looked at a lot of houses the past few days. Would you like to go back and take a look at that? The one we just looked at, that one seemed to pop out at you. I had an 80% contract rate, so I wrote contracts 80% when I started doing that. It's pretty amazing stuff. So that's just a little tip to use for your agents. Okay, lack of tracking agents showing. So you have to track what they do. I talked about this a little bit in the last slide. We track how many showings they do. We track how many, by showings, we mean how many different customers they show, and then we track their contract rates. So that way we know exactly where they need the help. Do they need the help more in getting the people in the car, or do they need the help more when they're out in the field? We had one agent who's now one of my top agents. She was number 4 this year. Her first quarter with me, she showed 29 different customers' houses from our lead system, which is ridiculously high. No one's ever done that before. And she had 0 contracts. So part of the thing we had to do with that, we had to actually analyze what she was doing, and it realized that she was nervous in the field. And because she was nervous in the field, the customer could pick up on that. So we taught her how to be more confident and how to close more sales. So when you're analyzing this stuff, it makes it a lot easier to do this, to help your agents become more successful. So what I want to go through now is really the step-by-step procedure. By the way, there's not a lot of steps. This is not rocket science. One guy said to me the other day, he goes, "You're like the grandfather of lead conversion." I go, "Well, I am a grandfather, so maybe that works." But since I started doing this stuff in 2001 and 2002. Anyways, this is what every single lead we get. Lead distribution is 1 to 2 leads today, so it's between 45 and 60 per month. The first thing we send them is a thank you letter. This is all email, by the way. A thank you letter combined with a first list of properties based on whatever they were searching. We also have a default price range set up for each city. So if they give us no price range or they give us a general price range, we set up whatever's the most common sales. So in our area, for instance, like right now, Vieira, which is one of our nice areas, is running between $300,000 and $600,000. So if a lead comes on looking for houses under that, the system's automatically going to send them listings in that default price range. It's important to do that. If you have an automated system like we do, you want to make sure that you have something set up like that, or if they're setting you not enough criteria to send them something, you want to have default searches set up so you can do that. Every single lead, from the minute we get them until the minute they tell us to leave them alone, is set up in listing updates. We never unsubscribe anybody unless they say leave us alone, and that's very seldom. We don't get a lot of unsubscribes. Right now, we have 45,000 leads in our database. We have between 800 and 1,200 logging in every single day, so it's a great base to continue to keep our sales in the 300 to 400 range from the internet every year. Once we've set up the search, we make the first phone call. With us, we're getting right now, we call at least 6 times with leads with phone numbers. Our contact rate in the brokerage is about 80%, 78% actually. With the FCA service, our first call service, we're running between 65 and 75%, depending on what's going on and where they are. It seems the people in Canada have a higher contact rate, so they must be more understanding or more likable than us in the United States, I guess. I don't know. The purpose of the calls is a couple-fold. You want to find out the all the stuff that's in the search, good phone number, good email address, search criteria. But the most important aspect of that call is urgency of the lead. Remember we went through those stats earlier. If you don't use those, if you don't find out urgency in the lead, you're missing out a lot of the low-hanging fruit. So depending on the time frame, the buying time frame, that's going to determine where we put our lead in our back system. Any questions? Everything okay so far? All right. So we're going to disposition that lead into one of these groups depending on the things. So they'll either go into a active lead high-end, active lead short-term, I mean they're doing something within 60 days, lead with no phone number or bad phone number, leads that we show property to, leads that are on the schedule, and low-end leads. For instance, we don't, our low-end leads, nobody wants to work low-end leads in our area, so we just send them and use them for training purposes. For our ISA company, we use them for our first call agents to train on, so we don't use other people's leads. So they'll call our low-end leads, and unfortunately they get customers in, we got to deal with them. But that's what they're used for. Calendar leads are people who are scheduled to come in. Being in Florida, we're a transient area, meaning we have to wait for people to get here. So they might say we're not coming till March, so that would be calendared for March. And then between the ISAs and the agents, we make sure we stay on top of those. The other source that we see a lot of agents make mistakes on is people they showed property to. We see it all the time. They put in their, they just showed property and then they're on to the next customer. So we put them in the shown property, and our ISAs actually follow behind them to make sure those people are called on a regular basis. So you make sure you have an organized way of dispositioning your leads, or you just have a bunch of leads. I know you can do all that within Follow Up Boss or most CRM systems that are out there right now. Any questions so far before I get into drip campaigns? Anything on there, Dan, I got an answer?
Yeah, so I'm getting some questions on how you track showing. So how do you get the agents to report that back so your ISA manager can stay on top of that?
Sure. So one of the things that we've required all these years is a showing sheet. So we have a showing sheet that it tracks how many people they showed that week, and they're required to turn them in every Monday morning. If they're not in by noon on Monday, their lead flow gets shut off. It's pretty simple. So we want to, we use that, and that tells us how many showings they had, it tells us how many contracts they wrote, and how many closings they had. And that allows us to really track those rates that I'm looking for, the conversion rates. Any other questions?
No, there's some more general ones we'll catch at the end because I think you've got some content already for them.
Okay, cool. All right, so drip campaigns. Remember, I said as a team leader or a broker, you should take control of your drip campaigns. Letting agents do their own thing becomes quite the headache. Drip campaigns are really simple. If you're sending listing updates, you don't have to send a lot of stuff. They have to be relevant. I'm not a big fan of the what are those things? The recipes and lawn gardening tips and all that stuff. That's just a load of, pardon my French, but just a load of crap that nobody really cares about. It must be relevant stuff. So we send them our monthly newsletter, which talks about real estate stuff. We send them our stuff about our local community and things like that. But everything we do is less than a paragraph long. We call it the 10-second rule. We don't want anybody to read more than 10 seconds because if they're like myself, again, ADD, they're probably not going to be, they're not going to read anything more than 10 seconds worth of whatever you send them. If you're doing the listing updates, you don't have to have a lot of drip campaigns. But I will tell you, if you're not doing anything, this one I have at the bottom here of the slide, you should write this down because this is the most important drip that I've ever had, and I started doing this in 2002. I was so technically savvy back then. I did I used to use AOL address book, and I would start when I was slow, which was very few times. I'd start with the letter A. Hi, Arthur. This is Mitch. Just checking in, making sure you're getting my listing updates. If you have any questions, let me know. I can show you any property in Brevard County. And I would never get past the letter I before I slammed busy again. I gave this letter to a friend of mine, Russell Shaw. You might know Russell. This is quite a few years ago now. And I said, send this out to your database and tell me what happened. He called me back and said, now I'm too damn busy. Not a bad place to be. So that letter, just checking in, making sure you're getting my updates, is probably the most important drip campaign that we do. Again, if you're sending listing updates, you don't have to worry too much about it. So
Mitch,
the next thing I want to show you is a call.
How often do your listing updates go out? How frequently?
Listing updates we do daily. The reason why we do it, it really is market dependent. So our listings are on the market for generally less than a week if they're priced correctly. So if we only sent weekly, we would miss out on a whole bunch of customers because they would miss out on a lot of properties and they'd be angry with us. By doing it daily, we know they're getting the most up-to-date, accurate information that we can give them, and therefore, if a house comes up on the market, and especially if we're CC'd on it, which we are, we can call them relay, hey, did you see that house? We should go look at it today because it's going to be gone by tomorrow. So we do daily.
Okay, perfect. And the other thing people are asking about, two parts of the follow-up campaign. How are you using texting in your follow-up? And also people are asking about voicemails as well.
Sure. I think I talk about voicemails in a minute, but we'll touch on it now. So we've gone full circle on this. Recently, I was always a believer of leaving a voicemail. However, these days I'm kind of leaning against leaving a voicemail, and I'll tell you why in a second. And texting, we are just starting to do texting now. Now, my agents will text their customers when they're calendared, if they can't get a hold of them. But we're adding texting into our processes right now. The beauty of having a real estate brokerage and an inside sales company is I'm able to use my brokerage as my guinea pig. I hope none of my agents are on here. Because we're going to do texting right now and test that. And the test is going to be, we've already tested doing instant text. So we make a phone call, and as soon as we hang up, a text goes out. Our unsubscribe rate went through the roof, so we don't recommend that. We're doing now, the test is going on, I'm not sure if it's going out this week or next week. The test that's going out now is 30-minute delay from when we make our first phone call, and that'll be something, we've sent you a list of properties, and we just want to take a few minutes to go over it. When's a good time to contact you? And hopefully we get some sort of response from that. So we're doing testing on it. I love texting. It's just you want to make sure that you're not, some of these people and they're preaching some of the stuff, and maybe it works for them, but call them, email them, text them, call them, email and text them twice during the day. And all I know, when we test anything, when we're overdoing it, our unsubscribe rate went up through the roof, and we didn't get the numbers we're doing now doing that stuff. Any others before I move on? No. Oh, we were talking about what was the other one? Voicemail. Yeah. So voicemail. If you're going to leave a voicemail, and again, it really depends where you're at. If you're in a more rural area, sure, I don't have a problem with a voicemail. There's going to be less people that have your leads. It seems to be we've done good both ways. Right now with our customer care center at our first call systems, we are not leaving messages, and we're having a very good contact rate. When we do leave messages, it's very quick. Hi, this is Mitch with Tropical Realty. Sent you a list of properties. Just want to take a few minutes to go with. Please give me a call back at 555-5555. And so again, back to that 10-second rule. If your voicemail is more than 10 seconds, you're going to lose them. So you want to make sure that you're doing less than 10 seconds. But right now, if you're doing a multiple callback schedule like we do, I don't recommend leaving a voicemail. If they know it's you, they may not answer the phone. I do have some friends of mine that are doing really well with calling, and I haven't tested this yet, so I can't tell you how it works. Calling, hanging up, and then calling back 2 minutes later or 1 minute later. They seem to think people are doing well with that. I have not tested, so I can't vouch for that. I can only vouch for what we do. Okay, so callback schedule. Remember, it's all mindset here. So after our initial contact, we call back a week later just to make sure what we're sending them is what they want. And then depending on their buying time frame is when we call. If they're buying in 12 months or more, we call every 2 months until they get to 6 months. And then we call every 6 weeks. And then we get to 3 months. Then we call once a month until they get to a month. Then we call weekly. Now, this is very generic, meaning it's not the same for everybody. We have a lot of, a lot of customers will call a week later and their buying time frame changes. Right now, we're actually doing a really good job of contacting almost all of our active leads within every 4 to 6 weeks. Our ISAs are hitting about 6,000 dials per month. We've got around 12,000 active leads. We have 2 ISAs. We have about 15,000, maybe 20,000 active leads. So they're able to hit almost all of our active leads within every 6 weeks or so. But this is the general, what we generally use, our general callback. But based on your conversation with them, that's going to change every time you have a conversation with them. Any questions on that? Okay, so I want to talk about an ISA department and why we have an ISA department, why I did this 10 years ago, and how important it's been to my business. First of all, as a broker and team leader, I'm going to assume half of you are brokers and team leaders, you don't have to deal with it anymore. That's the best part. I spend more time building my company now than worrying about my lead conversion, which is what I spend all my time worrying about. They handle all aspects of my leads. They transfer leads from agents who are on top of their leads. I give them power to terminate agents from our lead system. We used to just fire everybody, and those of you who know me know that's true. But now we terminate people. If we like them, we'll let them stay in the company in one of our programs, which is not a lead program. But I put it all in there because their pay was directly there. As I said earlier, they'll transfer high-end leads out of low-end agents' leads. We don't want to tarnish our reputation as a company, so if we see an agent that shouldn't get a high-end lead, then we're going to not do that. Now, our high-end leads, even when we do round robins, are only assigned to our better agents. However, with that said, a lead can come in, especially buying in Florida. They think they can buy a waterfront house for $150,000. So that would go out to any agent. We find out they're actually looking for something in the $500,000-$600,000 range or more. We're going to transfer that to somebody that can handle that. Let's see. They ensure all the searches are updated and property inquiries are responded to by agents. Average time for a property inquiry to be called is 36 hours. That is amazing to me. So you have someone inquiring on a property, and you're not calling it immediately. Our ISAs call them within a minute or two. But the big downfall I've seen with a lot of my friends that have ISAs is they don't have enough lead flow. So what they do is they send to have the ISA start doing admin work. If the ISA starts doing admin work, they're going to start gearing toward admin work, and they're going to start calling less and less and less. I made this mistake. It was one of the biggest mistakes I made. It cost me hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and it took me 5 years to figure it out, by the way. That's the downfall of an ISA. They become more of an admin person than a caller. An ISA, whether it's a part-time person, full-time person, that's all they should be doing is making phone calls. These are some stats that I pulled from one of our ISA customers. And it just gives you an idea of how important it is. We called, for this customer here, 829 leads. We contacted 590 of them, that's 71%. It took us 2,967 calls to reach 590 leads. So it's almost 5 times, it is 5 times the amount of leads to actually make that many phone calls to actually get a hold of them. And we know this isn't something that agents aren't going to do, which is why we have an ISA department. Out of the 590 leads we got a hold of, 358, so pretty close to, well, more than half actually in this one, had positive outcome. Positive outcomes to us are 190 were active leads, so we're actively looking for a house. 114 had picked a time frame of when they're buying a house. 44 were live transfers. A live transfer is someone that's going to do something in 2 weeks. I mean, they want to buy or sell something in 2 weeks. We're going to do a live transfer to that agent. And then 10 were what other miscellaneous things. But the reality, the number you really need to look at there is that 2,967 calls to reach 590 leads. If you're calling once and getting hold of about 30%, you would have only gotten a hold of 220 leads instead of 590 leads. Out of that group, we had 232 negative outcomes, so 104 unsubscribes, 110 bad phone numbers, and 18 other miscellaneous dispositions. Again, one of the things, if you're a team leader or a broker, agents get very frustrated when they're getting 30, 40% or more of their leads have bad phone numbers or bad outcomes. So when that's the case, you're pretty much going to lose that agent, because most agents, unfortunately, look at things as half empty instead of half full. If I was looking at this number and out of 800 and whatever that lead flow was, out of 800 leads, I had 200 negative outcomes. That means 75% of my leads are good and only 25% are bad, whereas most agents look at this, all leads are bad. So it's just the wrong mindset with people. Any questions about that part there?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of questions coming in about like where you're finding, like how do you find and hire a great ISA? How do you compensate the ISA? And also just sort of more generally too, like if your ISAs are licensed and sort of that kind of thing. So can you go into a little more detail about the role, the compensation, that kind of stuff?
Sure, of course. Um, so hiring them and there's two different things. So hiring them for your individual brokerage and hiring them for what I do are two different things. So our inside sales agents in my company, not my brokerage, are not licensed. It's just not possible to do what we do here and be licensed. Um, where we in-house for my ISAs that were in-house, they were all licensed because that was part of their compensation package. So for our inside, and those guys mostly did nurturing. So we had a couple of non-licensed ISAs, but they only did first calls. So for our long-term nurturing people, they tended to be licensed. Compensation was pretty simple. It was a $2,000 a month base and 5% of the sale, so 5% of the commission. That was it. I mean, we really kept it really simple. The first call people, they get bonused based on how many sales we had that month, and they were usually about $12 an hour, $11 an hour in this market. And all employees have health insurance. So, and then finding them. If you're looking for an agent, there are a lot of agents in your area that like to talk about real estate that don't have any desire to be out there in real estate, and they need to make a paycheck. So that's kind of who I looked for. With regards to when we're hiring, first call people, it's really people that are about to get the information we want. We don't want them getting into the whole real estate conversation because there's strictly a volume thing. One of the things to think about, if you have a full-time ISA in your office, which is great, one thing that's difficult is keeping on top of the first calls. And I don't think I have a slide in here on that. I know I have it on one of my other things I do. But just for a second, if you think about making first calls, so we get 30 leads a day. So at 30 leads a day, we know the first day they're going to get a hold of 10. We know the next day now they're going to have 30 plus 20 leads. So that's 50 leads they get a call the next day. And we know they're going to get a hold of 15. So now we know we're going to have 35 plus, whatever. And that's up to like 75. By the third day, they're up to like 65 or 75 leads they got to call that are just first phone calls. It's very difficult to have one person doing a first call. You kind of need two people doing it to be able to stay on top of it. Again, it's one of the reasons why we opened up the service here is because we can handle, a gazillion leads coming in at the same time. Let's see, first impression, so team building. Any other questions on that?
Yeah,
ISA part?
like a couple things too. Like, at what times a day are you typically having them work and
Sure.
do their calling?
Sure. So we know the best times of days to call are between 8:30 and 10, and 4 to 6. So that's a long day. So we didn't have them doing the morning one. We had them doing more like a 10 to 6 shift.
Got it.
Because we wanted the afternoon one. The morning one, people are on the way to work, and a lot of them don't want to talk about this stuff. After work, they don't really seem to care. But we do it like with the ISA company. We call from 9 in the morning till 8 at night, so we don't care. We cover all the times during that because we want, it's different. What else? Any other questions?
Yeah, and
And by the way, lead flow is generally during that time period is also one of the highest lead flow for us too.
okay, gotcha. Another question about like what do you do? So the ISAs, like, how do they determine when they actually move the lead onto the buyer's agent? Like, what would you determine as being fully qualified and agent ready? What does it take to get there?
Okay, so the agent is always involved in the process. We don't take the agent out of the process. So let me explain that real quick for you. When the first call person gets a hold of it, our agents are required to call that lead within 24 hours to introduce themselves and set the stage for the rest of the game. So the ISA qualifies and say, great, Melissa's going to give you a call. And we brand everybody, by the way, as the team. So the first call person calls, hi, I'm part of the Melissa Goldman real estate team. So every agent in our office is a real estate team. And then when we're done, great, Melissa's going to give you a call in the next, within the next day to say hi, introduce herself. And then Melissa calls, say, this is Melissa from the Goldman real estate team. I know you talked to one of my assistants. I just want to let you know how we work. I'm in the field all the time with my customers, and either myself or one of my assistants is going to be in touch on a regular basis to make sure you're receiving what you need, and will help us in the buying during the buying time frame. And then a week later, the ISA nurturing agent picks up the phone, calls that person. Hey, this is so-and-so from the Melissa Goldman Real Estate Team. I'm Melissa's assistant. I just want to make sure you're getting, what you want, blah, blah, blah. They confirm time frames, and then they continue to start nurturing that time. Now, during that entire process, there's going to be real estate-related questions that I don't want my ISAs answering. So at that point, we involve the agent every time. And the reason why we do that is there's got to be some rapport with the agent in the lead, or you're going to lose that customer. Look at it this way: if they're registering on 5 sites and 3 people call them, and 2 are agents and 1's an ISA, and the agent never calls, they're going to work with one of the agents, not somebody's assistant. So you got to involve the agent right from the beginning. I think that's one of the things we started doing right away when we started the ISA service, department years ago, was we knew we had to involve the agent, and so the agent has to do all the action items, and then our accountability manager follows behind that action item to make sure it's done. If it's not done, depending on who they are, so if it's one of our better agents, we'll usually give them a quick call, say, hey, what happened to this lead? If it's one of our not-so-better agents, the lead gets transferred immediately. That should answer that, right?
Yep. Yeah, that was good. And then at what point does financing get brought up? Is that something the agent takes care of, or the ISAs doing that and introducing the lenders? How does that work?
Yeah, the ISA will do that, and the agent will do that. So, part of our goal, we try to get to that on the first call. First call financing is a really challenging conversation, especially in this day and age where there's so much, identity theft and lack of trust over things from the internet. So we don't push it. The agent will try to do that when she's talking to her on the phone call the next day, and then as the nurturer builds that relationship, we'll get more into that. And it really depends on their time frame. I mean, if they're not buying for a year, there's no reason to have a financing question right now. Well, the conversation in 6 months, 9 months. So we pay attention to those things with the timelines.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, and when would you like to tackle the technical questions about software and stuff like that, like what dialer you're using and that kind of thing?
Yeah, let me get through the next 4 slides, and then we'll take all those questions.
Perfect.
Okay. So team building, for those of you out there building a team, I will always tell you to hire very, very slowly and fire quickly. If you're looking to bring on agents onto a lead system, unfortunately, agents that are highly successful will never be successful on a lead system. I'm generalizing here, of course. They don't need the business. The perfect hire is somebody that is like that minimal production, but has the drive to be successful, but doesn't know how to get business. That's who we like to hire. I've hired tons and tons of agents over the years. We've fired hundreds. Well, maybe not hundreds, at least 100. I only had 15 leave me over the last almost 13 years now. And out of the 15 that left me, 2 came back, and there's only 3 that are still in business, not counting the 2 that came back to me. So a lot of times they think that they're the ones creating all the business, but the reality is you created a lot of that business for them. First impression is everything to me. If I don't like them when I meet them, I'm not going to hire them instantly. So the first thing I look for, especially in Florida, if they're not dressed professionally, I won't even interview them. I've had people come to the office dressed in shorts and flip-flops, and I basically tell them that they wouldn't fit in my team, so there's no reason I'm going to spend my next hour of my life interviewing them, and I kick them out. If they don't smile right away when I meet them, I won't keep them. I'm not into. It's a certain specific person I'm looking at for my team, even our brokerage. Even though we have a hiring freeze for this year, if we get somebody awesome come in and they'll be an asset to our team, we'll bring them on. Positivity. It's the hardest part of team building because you're always going to get that one bad apple, right? And you all know what happens when you get the one bad apple, the cancer. One of the reasons why we fire quickly, as soon as I hear negativity, it's gone. We have a no negativity rule in my office, even with my admin staff. If they do anything negative, I fire them. I don't put up with it. I just, we get rid of them. We actually doing that right now today. My general manager is letting go one of our staff members because she's been negative, and we just, goodbye. We don't have time for that. It ruins everything. All right, next piece here somewhere. We added agents based on lead flow and based on 30 leads per month. So if you look at your lead flow, I've talked to an agent the other day. They're getting 10 leads a day for him and his friend, his partner. That's too many. You're letting so much money go through the drain pipe. You're not going to get them. If you have too much stuff, you need to hire an assistant. You need to hire an LCA. If you want to have great lead conversion, you can't count on the agents to do it. It's not going to happen. Again, if you're going to have an LCA is an ISA, same thing. And having them be an assistant also, you need to have specific time block in the duties between 9 and 12 you make phone calls, between 12 and 4 you do admin, and between 4 and 6 you make phone calls again. Okay? And back what I said earlier, and I've said a few times today, it's all about accountability. If you don't have any form of accountability in place, you're really going to miss the boat on conversion. You're going to miss the boat on everything. It's really, really difficult. So I'm going to run through the summary real quick here, and after I take a sip of water, and then I will answer all the questions on everything you have wanted to ask but haven't asked because you don't know who to ask. All right, so every single lead, no matter what, they get a list of properties and set up and listing updates, every single lead. Phone calls are mandatory. In this day and age, if you are not making phone calls, you are not making business. Yes, there's no question that if you do not make a phone call, you will get sales. There's no question you will. It's not what you're getting, it's how many you're missing. I look at brokerages all the time, and I see that again. I know what the conversion rates are. They are what they are. If you're getting a 0.3 or 0.4, 0.5, or less than 1% conversion, you're doing something wrong. You need to work on this. Keep your drip campaign simple and relevant. Track agents and/or their production. It's not about the lead conversion as much as it's about sales. So what I mean by that is, we at some point I really don't care whether my lead conversion is 5%, 3%, 2%. I just know I want to have close to 40 to 50% of my business coming from leads. If we're getting 300 to 400 sales from leads every year, I'm pretty happy. And my cost per sale stays around $200, which is what it is. I'm pretty happy. If you're going to not call, hire an ISA. Hire someone that's going to make those phone calls for you, because you're just leaving so much money on the table. I don't want to get to the services here. That's from another thing. But as an ISA, our retail pricing on it is $10 per call. Right now, we're offering for the next short term $5 per call, not per call, per lead. And setup fee is $295. If you're on this webinar and you're interested in something like this, I'll waive that setup fee. And there's my contact info. And go ahead, give me your questions. How's that for a sales pitch, huh? Real quick.
Yeah, so obviously, I know a lot of people, there have actually already been a ton of questions about the services that you're providing. So for those questions, to get more specific on that stuff, Mitch's website, as you can see on there, is InsideSalesAgents.com. You've got all this contact info there. We'll try to...
Yeah, by the way, just real quick, my assistant typed my phone number wrong, so I'll have to fire her when I get back. It's 258-4150, not 358.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So
I think she does it on purpose, so I don't work so hard.
Yeah, I'm sure that phone rings off the hook already. So
it does.
Yeah. So I answered a bunch of the questions that came in about it, but yeah, for the rest, what we're going to try and do is get into some more specifics about what people, the tactics people can use for their follow-up. So I've got a question about, I know you sort of touched on the fact that you're in a bit of a resort market or transient market. Someone's asking basically how, people are buying for lifestyle, second homes, and without urgency. So do you have any sort of tips or tricks for managing that side of things, that type of buyer?
Sure. That's a huge part of what we do. So basically, it's just a longer-term lead. We know that when we had 30 sales from leads from 7 years or older last year, because we don't ever get rid of them until they get rid of us. So the key is really just realizing you're building this relationship. And I can tell you, even though they've probably been on 10 other websites over that time period, you're the only constant in their life. And if you're the only constant in their life, they're not going anywhere. So there's no difference. If they're buying in 6 months or they're buying in 6 years, we're going to continue to follow up on every 1 to 2 month basis based on their time frame and stay on top of them. And I will tell you that we know that less than 50% who say they're coming aren't going to show up, aren't going to come. And we plan that into our business model. We know that.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So another one that's been asked a few times is about the split that you do with your agents. How are you, the ones that are on the lead program?
Okay, so this evolves over time. So this is an interesting psychological game. So when I started the business, it was 50-50 on everything they do, leads, everything, and which is great. The downside, not the downside, the upside of my business is that nobody ever leaves, right? We talked about that a little while ago. So the downside of that is they become more and more entitled as the years go by. Some of these people have been on leads now for 12 years, almost 13 years. So we started at 50-50, and then we went to 50% on leads, 60% on personal. And then, of course, as my agents became more and more successful, everybody and their mother started trying to recruit them. So we went to, and this is really funny because it's all psychological. So I said, look, I'm going to give you 75% on your personal. These are for my top agents, by the way. They have to hit $3 million within 1 year volume, which in our area is about 15 sales, right? They have to hit that to move up to the second level. So they get 75% on their personal, and they pay a 25% referral fee, which is, 50%, right? So in their brain, though, they're making 75%. So it's really psychological. As long as they think they're making what they think they're making, everything is good. If they think they're getting, they don't want to tell people they're only making a 50% split. They want to tell people they're making a 75%, 80% split, whatever that split is. So you just get it back in the referral fee back. That's how we do that.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Someone was asking as well, can you just recap like the ideal number of leads per agent? What do you typically hold that at?
Yeah, 1 to 2 per day. So we try to get our target goal is 45, no more than 60 per month.
Got it. Okay. And that's because you're assigning basically every lead that comes in gets assigned to an agent, and then it also gets assigned to one of the ISAs, right, for the call follow-up. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Okay. A couple of questions about the training of your, trainers and stuff. Like, do you do that all in-house? Is that you who does that? What's your structure for getting that training done?
Yeah, I mean, I did when we started because we had to figure out the whole program. But no, my so in my inside sales company here, Julie and Marlena were my ISAs for 10 years and 9 years. And so they came over and they do all of our training there, along with Tiffany, who's been with me for 5 years. They were my 3 in-house ISAs, 3 of the ones that were doing nurturing. So they do all the training of stuff. We have training all the time with they're FCAs right now, our first call agents. Pretty much on a weekly basis, we talk about things that have come up, things that are challenging, et cetera, et cetera. Always trying to stay on top of the game. That's the key to doing everything. We, for years, have analyzed in my brokerage. Every 30 days, we sit down with my ISAs and we'd have a conversation. We'd look at every agent. What do we want to do with this? Because as the market became more and more flooded with people on the internet, you got to become better and better at lead conversion. If you don't keep up with the times, they're going to pass you by, and it's really difficult. Even like with a Zillow lead, that Zillow lead goes to 5, 6, 7 people. If you're not really on top of it and staying on top of it, you're not going to get it.
Awesome. Okay. Bunch of questions about so some of the templates and the tools that you're actually using that you've mentioned. So everything from phone scripts to some email templates and sequencing, because I think a big thing for people that sort of gets a little bit challenging when you're going to put all this stuff in place is knowing exactly what to say and when to say it. Like, what does your sort of cadence look like and that structure? So is there anything you can sort of share with us there, or anything we can maybe provide to send out to people afterwards when we send out the recording?
Sure. So with regards to script, we do scripts, but we're not big script people. We prefer to give them scripts as a guideline and to have it put things in their own words so they're more comfortable saying them. I know that's contrary to some people who love to follow scripts exactly. So they start out learning the scripts and then they internalize them and They become a little more whatever they're comfortable saying. But it's really not. It's really more about a bullet point. Me personally, when I've been selling my entire life, never been a script guy. I've always been a bullet point guy. So it really depends on how you want to train your people to be. If you want them to be very, very, this is the rule and you follow this script, blah blah blah. We don't have a specific script for that because every call is different. Every lead we talk to has a different story, so you got to kind of go with the flow with all that stuff. The gist of the first call is very simple. Is this your right phone number? Is this your right email address? Is this your right search criteria? When are you looking to buy or sell? That's the gist of it. Our first call we try to keep to a 5-minute call. It's another reason why we never wanted our first call people to be licensed. We don't want them sitting on the phone for 20 minutes. We want them off in 5 minutes, maybe 7. So even with that, and then with our nurturing ISAs, that's the one that builds the relationship. I mean, that's the key to all of this on a long term. And they're the ones talking about the kids. They talk again. They're verifying what they're getting because again they're not licensed in our ISA company. So they sit there and they talk about their families. Are you getting what you want? Is this what you want? Do you want us to change the criteria? Is it you're still looking in Melbourne, or would you like to look beachside now? So we just have very non-real estate related conversations that are going to build that loyalty to our agent. Because remember, we're calling on behalf of that agent every single time. When Julie calls, she doesn't call anymore, but Julie is calling for Melissa. Hey, it's Julie with the Melissa Goldman real estate team. We're always constantly branding that agent as the real estate team because people want to work with people that are successful. I'll give you an example on that. We have a brand new agent been with me for 3 months. I have 2 people that are on leads that have been with me for a short term. And his first 6 weeks on leads, he got 5 contracts because of the way we do it.
Love it. Fantastic. So lots of questions coming in about what you do. So you'd mentioned that you got 25% of your closings off of people with no phone number. Do you have any more specifics about what you're doing with those particular leads, how you follow up with them? Is it just the listing alerts or how are you managing that?
Yeah, just the listing alerts and the couple of drip campaigns we use. I mean, it's really not a lot. So we have a couple of different drip campaigns, one for bad phone numbers, one for good phone numbers, no contact. So bad and no phone numbers, the same thing. And then one for past customers. Those are our 3 major ones we use. But it's really a testament to our systems. It's setting everybody up on listing updates regardless if we have their phone number or not. So it's just, there isn't much you can do. One of the things I will recommend, depending on what you're using for a database, if you can search by, well, you don't really even need to do this anymore because things have changed so much with cell phones. I wouldn't do this every week, but every couple of weeks, every 3 weeks, if you get nothing going on over the weekend, if you can do an email blast to your database, just email the database and say, I had a cancellation for tomorrow. If you're interested in looking at property, let me know. Many of my agents do that and do really well with that. So that's one of the things you can do and do very successful with.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and a couple more questions coming in about the scripting and the process and stuff too. I mean, the reality is, guys, like if you're selling real estate, I mean, the fact is you're talking to real people that if you were face to face with them, you'd probably say the same things, right? It's you guide them gradually along a process to being warmer and more ready to actually enter into the shopping process with the agent, right? It's not, I see a lot of people on my side going right for the jugular on the first call, right? And
I can't do that.
yeah, closing the sale of a home just doesn't happen on the first bite, right? So it's a step-by-step process, and it sounds to me that's what Mitch is really sort of talking about here is that it's just you don't have to go all at once in the very first phone call. Like just because you got that contact, what you want to do is just add value and just be progressive about it. And those people will show you when you're ready, as long as you're the one being consistent, right?
Right. Yeah, and then it really comes down to, I mean, nobody wants to be sold in the real estate world, and you all know that. Nurturing is really, we find, a lot of our stuff is, how many kids you have, what's your lifestyle, after the first call. We want to know them as people, because when you know each other as people, you tend to have a lot better chance of keeping them loyal. That's the hardest part. Loyalty on the internet is really difficult. That's the challenge.
Got it. So there's a couple of questions, a bunch of technical questions actually. So around like, do your agents and your ISAs use the same system to manage both sides of the follow up that's going on?
Yes. So there's just different permissions that our ISAs can see everything. Our agents can only see their stuff and certain things like that. So we had built, we're in the middle of switching right now to a Real Estate Webmasters website. Um, but we had originally built our own systems back in '08. I spent $500,000 building my own websites in Lee. I didn't do it personally, obviously. We built our own websites, but more importantly, we built our own back-end lead conversion system that automated the entire lead conversion process from the point of setting up listing updates and all that stuff, because we knew with the amount of lead flow we had that agents were just not going to stay on top of it. Once they got busy, they would never stay on top of it. So we do that all automated within our system.
Gotcha. And then for a dialer, what are you guys using for that?
We have used for probably 6 years now Mojo. We love Mojo.
Okay.
We don't use Mojo for our customer care center here at ISA. We use a new dialer. That's actually, this dial is made for call centers that are ridiculously crazy strong. It's amazing what these things can do. Pretty cool stuff.
And do you ever run into any issues with the do not call list?
No, because if they register on your site and give you a phone number, that's legal. Legal. They've given us permission to call them.
Awesome.
And by the way, that's a good. One other thing I want to say on that I forgot to say. When you have agents out there and they're having difficulty making phone calls, all you have to say to them, and we have 400 some people still on here. If you register on a website and you don't want them to call you, do you give them your phone number? The answer is no. Nobody does. I'll be in front of a crowd of 500 and not one person will raise their hand. My point is, if they give you their phone number, and they give you a good phone number, they expect a phone call. Now, will there be some, not fitting to that form every time? Of course. But the reality is that most people who give you a good phone number expect a phone call. So if you're not calling them, it's a really bad reputation on your company when they don't call that lead who gave you a good phone number and expected a phone call. And that's what we hear most of the time. Thank you so much for calling. We've registered on so many sites and no one's ever called us before.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It blows my mind. I mean, the reality is, and I hate saying this, but this company, inside sales agents, should never exist. There's this. I mean, we should not exist. The reason we exist is because agents won't make phone calls.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. It seems almost too easy when you put it like that, right? But
I know,
like you said
right?
at the beginning, it's not rocket science, right? It's not easy, but it's simple, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's a very simple process, but enforcing it, making agents do it, and some have legit excuses. They're busy, they're doing something, but most of the time it's just because they're lazy. They want to make as much money as possible without doing as little amount of work as they can.
got it. Let me see. I think there's a few other things. People are really curious about that showing template that you have. I don't know if there's any
Sure.
details you can share with us on that, or
It's really pretty simple. I will tell you what. I will email you it. I don't have it in the computer here. If you send me an email later on, and I'm at my other office, I will email you our template, and you can do whatever the heck you want with it. How's that?
fantastic. I will try to include that. Basically, guys, a lot of people asking about recording. Some people had to jump off early and stuff. So I am definitely going to be sending out this recording. I'm going to try and have it ready to go for tomorrow. What I'll do is set up a page on our website, and then I'm also going to try and link to a bunch of the resources, including the slide deck and all that kind of stuff, so you guys have an easy way to review this info. Because I know it comes at you fast and furious sometimes, and you're trying to scribble it all down. So we'll try and make sure that you've got all the resources in front of you. So if you got time, Mitch, we got a bunch more questions here. We can keep diving in. Like, I've got a bunch of questions about seller leads. So I know that most of what you're getting through your, the pay-per-click advertising that you're doing is buyer leads. But what do you do any seller lead generation, and do you have any strategies for following up with them?
Sure. It's there's not much difference actually. We do call seller leads at our ISA company for people. It's just a different phone call based on whether they want to sell or not. As you all know, most seller leads are a waste of time if somebody wants to see the valuation of their house. But what we do with every sale when we get, and it's been paying off for us lately, is and I don't have stats on it yet because we just started working these things like 6 months ago, so I haven't really put any stats together. But what we do is we set every single one of those listing leads up in a listing update system for their neighborhood, and the conversation is always we want you to be able to stay on top of what's going on in the market here, and that gives you the door to open and call them whenever you feel like calling them and talking about it. So that's the big strategy. Of course, we do the same thing as far as calling. We call up to 6 times to get a hold of them. I haven't found a good way to generate good listing leads from the internet. We're doing the valuation website stuff, which is okay. But I'd say about 75% of the leads we get are partials. So we've been mailing stuff, or the agents have been working, putting stuff on their doorknobs. Haven't done really well with that yet. We're doing better with the ones that have phone numbers and all those, and as long as they have an email address, we're setting every single one up in listing updates. In fact, I just checked. Last month we had, it was December, we had 22 listing leads without any information, but we just had an email address. And we had 42. Out of those 42, 22 were opening the emails we sent them. So there's potential there. We don't know what the potential is on a long-term basis yet. We're still working it.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So just looking through, people are really excited about it. Some people actually, I apologize, I know I'm showing up as Dan Corkle. It's not actually Dan. His Australian accent has not disappeared. This is actually Dave. I'm just using Dan's GoToWebinar account. I do marketing and sales at Follow Up Boss, so he hasn't fully Americanized yet, even though he is living stateside. But yeah.
I was going to say something about that because I didn't think you were Dan.
Yeah, no, I know. I apologize. I meant to clear that up at the beginning, but yeah. And there's someone that you know personally, Mitch, who's asking who won the Super Bowl.
Go Pats!
You can guess that's probably one of your favorite Atlanta agents who was asking that question.
Yeah, and he has to actually. I'm getting ready to. When we hang up, I'm sending him a shirt so he can wear it around his office.
Yeah, I thought you and Mr. CB had a little bet going, so that's
yeah,
good.
Of course. Yeah, we have to. Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Well, like the thank yous are pouring in. It seems like people are really thrilled with the information. Lots of Go Pats coming in here now too. Yeah. So let me see. No, I mean, I think that's fantastic. So basically, guys, there are a ton of questions that I know I wasn't able to get to. I mean, you have to understand with 500 people on here and just me trying to pour through them, I wasn't able to get to everything. We're going to send out the recording. We're going to send out the slides. Mitch offered up the copy of his showing sheet, for specific questions about Mitch's service. So Follow Up Boss is actually set up to be able to send leads directly to Mitch at, in his inside sales agents team. So basically, they're able to kind of pull in the leads that you're getting from all over the place that come into your Follow Up Boss account. You can route them over to Mitch's team for the calling and the follow-up. And then they'll send you the notifications when those leads have been, connected and basically doing what they do. So if you've got more questions about the specifics of what Mitch's service does, or, details of what they're going to do for you, definitely reach out to him directly. I know that he would be very keen to have a chat with you. So, I know there's a bunch of questions there I wasn't able to get to. Otherwise, guys, if, other questions at all, follow-up stuff, you can feel free to email me as well. You can get us at hi@followupboss.com. And myself or one of my colleagues would be happy to get questions answered. If you got follow-ups as well, I can forward them on to Mitch too, so we can try to get some answers back to you guys. But overall, I just want to say thank you, Mitch. This has been fantastic. Sure. I know I personally learned a ton. We'll definitely be trying to make sure that we get all this content out to you guys as quickly as possible for a follow-up. So yeah.
Great. Remember that phone number is 321-258, not 358. So if you do call me, I prefer email because I get about 4,000 calls a day. Not really, but
Yeah, cool. So yeah, appreciate your time, Mitch. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, we'll if it seems like the feedback's really good, so maybe we'll try and do a follow up one sometime in the next couple of months here.
sounds great. Thanks. I appreciate it, Dave.
All right, take it easy.
All right, take care. Bye. All right, bye, everybody.